You are standing in a cramped stone kitchen in Naples, sometime in the late 1800s. The air is thick with wood smoke and crushed tomatoes. Baker slides a flat disk of dough into a brick oven, so hot it could melt glass. And in 90 seconds, he pulls out something that looks almost exactly like what you ordered last Friday night. No box, no delivery app. It's fire, flour, a guy who has no idea he's about to become one of the most copied cooks in human history. Here's what's strange though. Bread this simple existed for thousands of years before that moment. Tomatoes had been sitting in Europe for over 2 centuries before anyone thought to put them on dough. So why did it take so unbelievably long for someone to combine two ingredients that were both just sitting there, ready to go? That's the real mystery, and the answer is way older and way weirder than a pizzeria in Naples. Most people assume pizza was basically invented as a full dish all at once by some clever Italian chef looking to make a quick meal. Simple story, no real evidence behind it, but that's not remotely what happened. The truth is that pizza wasn't invented. It was assembled piece by piece across thousands of years by people who never once knew they were building toward it. Start with the flatbread. Archaeologists have found charred flatbread remains in Neolithic sites going back over 6,000 years, long before anyone had a word for Italy. Ancient Egyptians were baking flat rounds of dough on hot stones. The Greeks were topping flatbread with olive oil, herbs, and cheese, and they had a word for it. Placus, essentially a proto-pizza with zero tomato in sight. Think about that. People were eating something suspiciously pizza-shaped nearly 3,000 years before Naples even existed as a city. So the bread half of the equation was solved almost absurdly early. The missing piece was sitting 8,000 miles away in the mountains of South America, where the tomato had been growing for thousands of years before anyone in Europe had ever seen one. When Spanish explorers brought tomatoes back to Europe in the 1500s, almost nobody would eat them. Wealthy Europeans genuinely believed tomatoes were poisonous because they were serving them on pewter plates that leached lead into acidic food, and people were dropping dead after dinner. The tomato got blamed for over 200 years. Meanwhile, poor communities in Naples who couldn't afford pewter and were eating off wood and clay never had that problem. They started eating tomatoes without dying and treated flatbread as the cheapest, fastest meal on earth. And that's not even the twist. The real turning point wasn't a chef, it was poverty. Naples in the 1700s was overcrowded, and the poorest workers, called lazzaroni, needed food that was cheap, fast, and eaten standing up in the street. Flatbread topped with tomato, cheese, and a little oil hit every single requirement. It wasn't fine dining, it was survival food for people who had almost nothing. But here's why it actually mattered on a civilizational scale. This wasn't just a lucky combination. It required someone to overcome 2 centuries of fear around a specific ingredient, merge it with a food tradition older than written language, and turn it into something cheap enough for the poorest people in Europe to eat daily. Many small decisions made by people history barely remembers had to line up perfectly for this dish to exist at all. So when you ask how humans invented pizza, the honest answer is that they didn't. Not on purpose, not in one moment, and not by one person. It was assembled slowly out of Egyptian flatbread, Greek toppings, South American tomatoes, and Neapolitan desperation, until one day it stopped being a coincidence and became one of the most eaten foods on the entire planet. The next time a box shows up at your door in 30 minutes, you're not holding a modern convenience food. You're holding 6,000 years of accident.